This is kind of a new thing that I don't know if anybody has done it or not, but on my truck, I do not have rear brakes on it as of right now. I solid axle swapped it, but I'm converting them to disc at some point really soon, but I want to prep my truck up to be able to have an emergency brake in the back, but be hydraulic and not mechanical. So the primary purpose of this is oftentimes you can't get your brake foot and your gas foot, especially when you're up on a hill, to transition fast enough when you have a manual truck. So what the purpose of this is going to be is to act as an e-brake that is going to be mounted to my frame on the floorboard, and then with this master cylinder mounted up front and this vacuum hose attached to my intake manifold, much like the factory one for your foot brake, I'm going to make a pulled fulcrum lever that will push this, and I'll have vacuum actuated brakes for the back. Now when it's in four-wheel drive and the hubs are locked, the front brakes do technically stop the rear wheels, but that transition between you being stopped on a hill and hitting your gas, oftentimes you'll come back about 5 or 6 foot, and that's happened a couple times on my truck, and it's a little unsettling. So this is going to be a first that I know of. And we're gonna take this one step at a time. Plan on welding this tube to this spacer, this booster assembly, and this spacer specifically off of a Nissan 720. So I'm gonna weld it here, and then I'm going to weld out. That way I could put a pivot point here so it pulls, or actually pushes on this and hits the master cylinder, and then it will send one way of hydraulic pressure to the rear brake calipers when they're on there. So that's the purpose of this, and I'll upload some stuff as we go through. My lovely wife is videoing right now, so if it comes out looking awesome, it's because she did it.
Question.
What?
Who's your footwear sponsor?
Dogs.com. What do you think I should do?
I think you should do whatever.
Don't say whatever you think's gonna work, babe, because I don't want that response.
Well, I don't know what's gonna work.
Me either. Well, hello again. Alright, so this is what we got going on. My wife has elected for me to keep a seat. Otherwise, this would be a really clean install. But for today, instead, what I have, when I put my third link in here for the upper part of the axle, I left this big hole, and I never quite filled it up for about 6 months. So thankfully I didn't fill it back up. What I was gonna do is mount it like this, so it could be a pull handle, and I had flipped the master cylinder upside down so the vacuum port could be down towards the ground. Anyway, so instead of doing that, my wife had elected for me to save her a seat in this truck, since this is where all our money is going. So I agree. And so instead what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna flip it and have the master cylinder pointed upward. It's not gonna give a passenger a whole lot of leg room, but it'll be enough to be able to get this close. That way, when instead of mounting it on the bottom and having a draw from the pull rod here this direction, I'll just mount a plate up here, go that way, so whenever I pull it, this will actually sweep in like that instead. So that's kind of the plan. This is where it's gonna be, welded from here with 11 gauge steel to my frame rail, and hopefully that'll be enough to keep it all intact. And then to clean it up, I'll be cutting this tube off and being able to weld straight out to it. Anyway, stay tuned. We're still trying to make something happen here. Bye. So what I had done is I unbolted this from the booster. It's just standard rectangular forward bolt. Like I said, I'm gonna chop this side. This side went onto the firewall. Sorry. Let me turn that down. Alexa, off. Anyway, so this part went up against the firewall to bolt it up to the pedal assembly. Fortunately, I'm not gonna be able to use that because the pedal is integrated into the firewall on the other side and the steering column bracket. So it'd be too bulky, but I grinded this down and I have two options. This is 11 gauge steel. I think this is the same thickness as what this plate is coming off the firewall. I don't think I'm gonna have to use that. If you end up looking at the wall thickness of this tube, it's about the same as this here. This is in much better shape. This is all rusted inside. Obviously I wanna keep that from transferring over. So I'm just going to use this. I think this would be plenty strong. If I need to gusset it, I will. I'll just put some triangles in it. I believe that this is gonna work just fine. So because this is rounded, I'm going to notch this, clean it up, and then hopefully set it in, put a couple tack welds on there, and then weld it the rest of the way. Then I'll begin mock-up. You want the booster to sit over the floor pan. That way you could still seal under it if you wanted to. So yeah, that's the next step. I welded this up to here. Now the next thing I have to do is figure out exactly, and I'm probably gonna take this door off, but where I want it mounted, and this is hot, so I don't really want to hold it all that much. I gotta figure out what spot do I want this to sit. Once I do that, bolt the master up here, and the rest of it's gonna be on this side. And we ain't got too much longer to go and it'll be done. After welding all this up, there's not much mock-up to have to do. I grinded down on the frame rail, this supports the cab of the truck. I wanted to do that instead of getting it on the frame, because when it's on the frame and if I ever needed to cut it off, I don't want to kind of sacrifice the integrity of this frame. So I'd rather put it over on this side. Plus the wall thickness and the fact that it's braced on all four corners should do pretty well with this. I tack welded it in that area to double check and make sure that I had enough space in the future to be able to remove this master cylinder. Now on this, I just cut these fittings off, but it's the same master cylinder that's true to this truck for the brake pedal. But you cap whichever one you're not gonna use. I'm gonna leave this one probably open, just like on that one, because the front end's on this side. So what I'll do is I'll tap into here, put a stainless line running it all the way down with a dash fitting. But I wanted to make sure that I had enough room to replace this. Obviously this is just for mock-up. It's not very clean inside. And when you go to mount it, there's still enough room where we get this thing in here and bolt it down. So with that, obviously it's shaking a little bit. It's a little flimsy. I'm about to burn it in the rest of the way. But all in all, I would say that this has been probably about an hour-and-a-half project. All you need to do is find yourself a scrap truck to be able to pull parts off of. And once again, I'm gonna modify this plate here, keep those two bolts on that side, and have a pivot point on this end. So, as this would be, whenever I would pull it with my arm, this would pivot, which would pivot against this, and that would be the top plate. So, it's almost done. Anyway, quick little project for you guys. If this is something you're interested in, like I said, I pulled it off of a 85 to 86 Nissan 720. They do make these in other styles. The spacer is factory. It's not something that had to be outsourced. But if y'all ever consider doing a hydro e-brake, that'd be one way to take care of it. So anyway, that concludes it. Thanks for watching. Thanks to my wife for videoing. She's amazing. Almost out with her first son, Stetson, so that's pretty neat. So anyway, Holland, see you later.